some the in the US, the Federal Reserve Board defined millennials as the generation born between 1981 and 1996, and same as the American Psychological Association. All right. However, recently we came to that conclusion that you cannot call those born within that period millennials, and so it was adopted that those born within 1980 and 2000 are those that will be classified as millennials. Why? Because it is believed that those people are still in their prime. I mean, so someone who was born in 1980 at this point is probably 40 years old as at 2020. That's still a youth according to the United Nations standard. That person is still a youth as it were. So a millennial is actually a youth. A millennial is actually someone who is still vibrant. A millennial is someone who still has all the energy and who is bursting forth with energy to do things. A millennial is strong-hearted. A millennial is passionate. A millennial is enterprising. A millennial is interested in self-development. A millennial is not satisfied with the status quo. A millennial wants to see changes. And that's why if you look at world leaders who are old, right, may not classify majority of them as millennials. Trump is not a millennial. The Russian president is not a millennial. The Nigerian president is not a millennial, right? So you realize that a lot of world leaders are not millennials, as it were. But a lot of people who are watching this webinar are millennials who are still vibrant with energy. So you belong to that category, and that is why this webinar has been put together for you, because you're at that point in your life where you're still bursting forth with energy. But here are things that are beginning to hinder or restrict your movement. The lockdown is just telling you not to move around. It's almost in quotes, clean your ideas and the things that you have mapped out. And I believe that that's why you're at this webinar. Now, what is mental health? It's important that we get a grasp of what mental health really is. And so I'll try to talk a bit about mental health and what mental health really is all about. Now, mental health includes your emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So we'll talk about your emotional well-being. We're basically talking about how you handle your emotions. For example, anger is an emotion. Anger is not a psychological issue. Anger is an emotional issue. How do you control your emotions, right? When you talk about psychological issues, we talk about depression. We're talking about anxiety. When we talk about social well-being, we're talking about how do you interact with people. There's what we call social anxiety. You begin to talk about how stage fright. We talk about a number of things that has to do with your social interaction, those things that hinder you from interacting socially with people, right? That's when you talk about social well-being. But you bring all these things and they form what we mean about mental health. Now, it's the same way when you talk about public health. Under public health, you have communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases. They all fall under public health, right? But you don't talk about public illness. You don't talk about public disease. You still call it public health issues, and they begin to separate them into infectious diseases or communicable diseases, as the case may be. Now, your mental health talks about how you think, right? How you feel and how you act. Now, if you dissect this, how you feel refers to your emotional well-being. How you think refers to your psychological well-being. And how you act refers to your social well-being. Because we are all social beings. We all want to be loved. We all want to belong to a community or a group of people. And the moment your emotion is impaired, the moment your psychology is impaired, you begin to have issues interacting with people, so your social lifestyle is impaired. And so these three things are all together. You can't separate them. You cannot be emotionally okay and be psychologically ill. It's not possible. You cannot be psychologically okay and you're emotionally ill. It doesn't work that way. You can't say your social well-being is to its optimal best, yet you're having issues with your emotions, you're having issues psychologically. No, they work hand in hand. They are all together. All right, it's the same way. You cannot say you are sleepy and then you have your eyes open. No, your eyes have to be shut for you to really say that you sleep. All right. Now, it also helps us to determine how we handle stress. Your mental health helps you understand how you handle stress, how you relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from your childhood to adolescence. You need your mental health to be at its optimal best. You just cannot do otherwise. You cannot handle it otherwise. You need to be at your optimal best. And of course, over the course of your life, if you experience mental health problems, your thinking, your mood, and your behavior could be affected. Remember what I said earlier on, that your emotions, your psychological well-being, and your social well-being are intertwined. All right. And so in the course of your life, when you're thinking, which now is your psychological well-being, your mood, which is emotional well-being, and your behavior, which is your social well-being, will be affected if you experience any mental health problem. And so let's look at some factors that contribute to mental health problems. And some could be biological factors, such as genes or brain chemistry, right? Some people begin to have hormonal imbalances, and that begins to affect them. For some, it's about life experiences, trauma, abuse, you were raped, or you had someone come into your home, robbery, and all that. That could create a form of trauma for you, and then you begin to have issues relating with people. For those who have gone through rape before, they begin to find it difficult to trust the other opposite gender. If a male was raped, he begins to find it difficult to trust the female gender, or begins to see the female gender as an object, objectification. If the female was raped, she begins to find it difficult to trust the man. If you experience trauma in one way or the other, you may even find it difficult to pass a particular place in your area, especially if it happened at that time of the day or in an area that is similar. If you were robbed, for example, every noise that you hear in your house begins to frighten you, and you can begin to have panic attacks. All right. And so these things, life experiences could bring that. Also, you could have family history. So mental health problems come about due to family history. It's just part of the family. One person has experienced it. Everybody is open or has a tendency of being prone to experience one form of mental illness or the other. So it's all complex as it were, and we need to just pay attention to that. So that's a rundown of mental health. So let me say here that we have mental health problems, we have mental disorders, we have mental illnesses. Now, when we talk about mental disorders, talk about things like OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. We talk about eating disorders. Basically, a lot of them, you have disorders behind them. Multiple personality disorders, bipolar disorder, right? You have disorders against those names when you're talking about disorders. And we talk about mental illnesses, right? We need to talk about things like schizophrenia. We talk about things like, let me take schizophrenia, for example. I'm trying to remember in a number of their names now, but those ones are usually very chronic, and they require special care and special attention. Now, when we talk about mental health problems, yeah, depression as well. When we talk about mental health problems, then we talk about things like mild depression. If we talk about anger, if we begin to talk about fear, we talk about general anxiety disorder, right? We need to talk about a whole lot of issues that don't require hospitalization, that don't require medication, as it were, anxiety, fear, anger, and so on. So you need to understand those three categories. Now, all these put together, right, fall under mental health. So either you are mentally fit or you are mentally unwell. Let me state here that nobody is mad. The word mad is derogatory. You are mentally ill or you are mentally well. The same way you will not say that somebody is somebody who has malaria is mad. No, the person is ill. And so there's mental illness. There is nothing like madness or being crazy. Now, let's talk about COVID-19. Here, I'm going to go deep into us explaining COVID-19, and because I want you to throw away whatever it is that you have read somewhere, all the conspiracy theories running here and there, and I want you to focus on really learning what this pandemic really is about. We're going to talk about these viruses. I have a background in biochemistry, and I did a bit of virology and biology, invertebrate biology and vertebrate biology, and so I understand viruses, bacteria, and fungi, and so I can understand how viruses occur. So a virus is a tiny infectious agent that is too small to be seen with the human eye or even under a normal microscope. Usually when you want to see a virus, they use what we call a light microscope. They don't use a normal microscope when you want to talk about, when you want to see viruses. They can only replicate and multiply when they are inside a living organism, such as an animal, a human, or plant, and that act as the host. In parasitology, we talk about endoparasite and ectoparasite. Endoparasites live inside the host, while ectoparasites live on the host. a lot of times, if not every time, viruses are endoparasites. They live within their host.